So can I ask Amina Sayed, Asif Faruqi, Mr. Aman Aziz Siddiqui, Head of Strategy and Investment HBL, our keynote speakers, Kamila Shamsi and Razali Abedi Sahib, to please come on stage. The Karachi Literature Festival, to please give her closing remarks.
Dr. Asif Faruqi, Mr. Aman Aziz Siddiqui, Ms. Kamla Shamsi, Mr. Raza Ali Abdi, and Ms. Nahid Siddiqui, who will be giving a performance at the end of this ceremony, a performance of Kathak. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, authors, speakers, Assalamu alaikum. We are coming to the end of the 5th annual Karachi Literature Festival. And tomorrow all the chairs, the shamianas will have been put away. And this beautiful hotel by the sea, which has so admirably hosted our festival. Thank you, Mr. Dinshaw Avari, for your wonderful support. I think tomorrow the hotel can go back to hosting its more customary guests and diners. Tomorrow, will anything remain of these 3 exciting, enlightening, stimulating, entertaining days that we have spent together? I believe that they will. I believe that much will remain. To start with, there will be memories of events that we have witnessed, of the different people that we have met, of all those whose words we have listened to, whose arguments that we have listened to, and whose concepts that we have shared. But more than that, I believe that within each of us, some little thing will have changed. Each of us will have found his or her knowledge added to, I hope, or viewpoint altered in some way or the other. For this is a unique kind of event, one that does not leave anyone unaffected. So let us, ladies and gentlemen, let us understand that it was with the first poem composed, the first item of wisdom shared, the first thought expressed, or song sung, or dance danced or performed, that the seeds of human civilization were sown. In the struggle of civilization against barbarism, it were words, music, dance, art, and scholarship, the very things that this festival stands for, that are the most potent weapons. So whoever you are, participant or guest, speaker or listener, delegate, adult or child, or one who never loses the wonderment of a child, let me express my thanks to you for having been a part of the Karachi Literature Festival 2014. Thank you, all of you. And thank you for our wonderful speakers and to our host, the Beach Luxury Hotel. I hope that these 3 days have been as rewarding for you as they have been for all of us. And I would like to express my thanks to the media for their interest and their enthusiasm, and for writing and for covering all the words that are words of wisdom that our speakers have been talking about, and for giving the festival so much coverage. I've been asked by the media over the last 3 days to say something short and pithy about KLF. And each time I have said, ideas matter, books matter, authors matter, and above all, readers matter. And also I've said that through the KLF, we want to present an alternative narrative of Pakistan to the world. And we want to say that Pakistan is open for business. I would like to thank all our wonderful sponsors who have been with us and who have helped us make this festival a success. Habib Bank Limited, our main and title sponsor, thank you very much. The Embassy of Germany and the Consulate of Germany, the British Council, the Embassy and Consulate of France, the Alliance Française, the US Embassy, the Embassy and Consulate of Italy, the Embassy of Brazil, NIB Bank, Summit Bank, and Tapal Chai. A very special thanks to the Oxford University Press team who have done all this wonderful work to bring this festival to you. Actually, they are the ones who deserve all the thanks. A big thanks to our young team of volunteers who have been with us for 3 days. You must have seen them around in their wonderful t-shirts. Thank you, volunteers. And also a big thanks to the mediators team who have actually managed this event for us and looked after all the media coverage. So thank you, the mediators team, and thank you, the Beach Luxury Hotel team, for your wonderful hospitality. And most of all, I would like to thank you, our wonderful audience, for your gracious presence, your enthusiasm, and above all, your questions, because I think these are a real measure of our success. I would just like to make two quick announcements. One is that we are having the Islamabad Literature Festival at the Margala Hotel in Islamabad on the 25th, 26th, and 27th of April. So those of you who might be in Islamabad in those days, please mark it in your diaries. And again, we hope to have a wonderful group of speakers and authors at that festival. So look forward to welcoming you again. Thank you and Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Amina Sayyid. Can I call on Dr. Asif Farooqi to give his closing remarks?
Honorable diplomats and dignitaries, distinguished writers and their very loyal readers, ladies and gentlemen, Khawatinu Hazrat, Assalamu alaikum. What tremendous 3 days these have been. We have been talking books for the last 3 days, 3 crowded days filled to the brim with books and writers, and through them we have all been trying to connect with some of the most important issues of the day. And this made me think of something which Vladimir Nabokov had so beautifully said. Give me the creative reader, this is a tale for him. So these 3 days, this 3-day long tale was for you to relish and to take home with you as you leave these premises, which have seen much discussion in the last 3 days. It is through our readings and interaction with literature which moves us in so many ways. It is books which move, influence, and shape the ways we become. I do hope that we are able to absorb the influence of the books we read and are not influenced or impacted by the very deprivation of books denied to us. And in his keynote address, Mr. Raj Mohan Gandhi had talked about the house of Jinnah, the South Asian house which Mr. Jinnah had dreamed of. And I think of Mr. Jinnah's house as a house with a very large library, because Jinnah was fond of reading, and that's an important part of his legacy that we should sustain and cherish. This fear of keeping away from books has emerged as an important theme in some of the recent writings from Pakistan, as our poets and writers record their impressions of the turbulent times, the dreams we cherish, and the fears that continue to haunt us. As you know that a number of books were highlighted during this festival, I am reminded of the volume of selected poems by Kishwar Nahid and the beautiful lines which it contained. हम वो हैं जिन्होंने दानिश की दहलीज पे खड़ा होना सीखा था, हम वो हैं जिन्होंने बिरादरी का मतलब इंसानियत समझा था, हम वो हैं जिन्होंने मिलकर آزادی کی جنگ لڑی تھی. ہم وہ ہیں جنہوں نے دوستی کے لیے ہر سمت ہاتھ بڑھایا تھا. ہمیں کیوں اس مرحلے پہ آنا پڑا کہ ہم نہ بھاگ سکتے ہیں نہ کھڑے رہ سکتے ہیں. اور اس منزل پر آ کر ہماری وہ حالت ہو گئی ہے کہ مجھے وہ زہرا نگاہ کی خوبصورت نظم کی سطریں یاد آتی ہیں جو کل ان کے ساتھ سیشن میں دکھائی گئی تھی, اور ان کی نظم کے الفاظ میں آواز ملا کر اب ہم دعا بھی یوں مانگنے لگے ہیں. سنا ہے جنگلوں کا بھی کوئی دستور ہوتا ہے, خداوند جلیل و معتبر, دانا و بینا, منصب و اکبر, میرے اس شہر میں اب جنگلوں ہی کا کوئی قانون نافذ کر. لیکن جب تک ہاتھ میں کتاب اور قلم ہے یہی ہمارا دستور ہے اور یہی ہماری دعا ہے. Amina just said, I think on a very gloomy note, that tomorrow there are not going to be these chairs and these shamianas. So what will we do? What will life be like without KLF? I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to start reading the many books which I bought here, and I'm going to start by Kamila Shamsi's novel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your participation and enthusiasm, which we will cherish till we meet again next year. Khuda Hafiz, agle saal پھر ملیں گے اگر خدا لایا.
Thank you, Dr. Asif. Can I ask, may I request Mr. Aman Aziz Siddiqui, Head of Strategy and Investment, HBL, to give his closing remarks.
25 ممالک اور پاکستان بھر میں 1400 سے زائد شاخوں کے ساتھ امید کا گھنا درخت بن گیا ہے. یہ ہے ترقی کے جشن کی دھن. سن اے میرے ہم وطن سن. روتائی جشن کی خوابوں کی تعبیروں کی جہاں خواب وہاں HBL.
Thank you. اگر تالیوں کی گونج is a measure of how successful the KLF festival has been, I think آپ لوگوں نے انصاف نہیں کیا. Amina has done an outstanding job, and I would request a resounding applause for her. HBL is doing its bit of reflecting the softer side of Pakistan, both through these ads and in this festival. And somebody asked me, "You're a banker, what are you doing in Karachi Festival?" I said, "Well, I'm making an investment in the future." There are always exceptions. Seriously, we are here because we believe in all that has happened around us. HBL is absolutely honored to have the privilege of sponsoring such a wonderful event, and I hope that we can do that in the future as well. Like I said, for us, it is an investment on our future and the future of our children and Pakistan. We are a national institution and we are a commercial institution. It is, however, not about the numbers and return on investment. We have to make a difference in society. We have to give something back. We are about enriching lives and being able to empower people and enable people to achieve their dreams. We sincerely believe that all of us have a gift which is unique to us. Imagine 6.5 billion people in the world, and each one of you is unique. You have to discover yourself, and these platforms provide you that opportunity to discover yourself. Big or small, we believe that everybody can make a contribution. HBL is here to provide an enabling environment, which is exactly what this forum and event is all about. We are here to help you achieve your dreams. And we encourage you to pursue your dreams with full passion, vigor, and belief that can happen, and you too can make a difference. I personally believe that if you have the capacity to dream, Allah Ta'ala has given you the ability to achieve those dreams. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to dream that big. So please dream bigger, and let's see how we can make a difference. Thank you for Oxford University Press for organizing such a wonderful event yet again. Thank you, Amina, for your vibrant zeal and devotion which saw us through. And most of all, thank you to the brilliant writers, poets, intellectuals, and dignitaries who weaved the magic through their mesmerizing readings and poems, speeches, and comments. All of this would not have been possible without an appreciative audience like yourself. So thank you for coming to the festival in such large numbers, despite the strike, and most of all for your encouragement. You know, performing arts performs at its best when there is an appreciative audience. That's true for musicians, that's true for writers, that's true for all the artists there are. So thank you. कहते हैं कि अल्लाह को भी अपनी तारीफ सुनना पसंद है. हम तो उसकी एक अदना मखलूक हैं. On a lighter note, just reminded me of a joke that I thought I'll share with you. एक बीवी अपने मियाँ से पूछती है कि बताओ तुम मुझसे कितनी मोहब्बत करते हो. तो उसने कहा मैं तुमसे बेपनाह मोहब्बत करता हूँ. उसने कहा नहीं ऐसे नहीं, अखबार को नीचे रख के मेरी आंखों में डाल के कहो. उसने कहा फिर मैं वाकई में बहुत मोहब्बत करता हूँ. तो उसने कहा कि अगर मैं नहीं हुई तो क्या होगा, कि मैं बहुत उदास हो जाऊँगा. तो उसने कहा अच्छा, और मैं अगर मर गई तो कहीं मैं तो फिर पागल हो जाऊँगा. तो उसने कहा दूसरी शादी तो नहीं करोगे. उसने कहा पागल आदमी तो कुछ भी कर सकता है. So much about wanting to hear the good things. So please carry on the applause. We all need it. We all need a pat on our backs. In the last 3 days, while we have all been drenched in the literary talks and readings, लेकिन ये प्यास अभी बुझी नहीं, बल्कि एक और शोला से भड़का है. Sounds strange coming from a banker, but it's true. Time was not enough, yet there were plenty. One had to make difficult choices. Having said that, these forums, in my opinion, are intended to provide a platform for free speech and a constructive dialogue that will lead us to some solutions to our everyday issues. We must also demonstrate courage for some introspection and learn from our own mistakes. The future that you build for yourself is in your own hands. We need to build hope and a positive narrative for Pakistan. We all know what the problems are. Let's not dwell too much about what the problems are. Let's work and focus on solutions. That's really what we need. What are we doing now? What will be tomorrow? Let us not try to change others. Let's become the change that we want. If each one of you will change, you would have changed Pakistan and your destinies. I truly believe in that. For the first time, there has been a political transition in the country, and this in itself is a giant step forward. It's a historic moment for Pakistan. Let us not wait for everyone, not the government, not anyone. Let's take the first step and be the change you want to be. Thank you. Right here and right now in our midst, we have, in this audience, we have all the ingredients, actors, and colors to weave the magic carpet which will take us and Pakistan to that fairyland that we all dream of. Let us appreciate what we have rather than lament on what we don't. Let's count our blessings and not our shortcomings. Let us come together and give hope to people who are torn with dissent and an identity crisis. Let us focus on factors that will bind us, not fracture us. And in the end, I hope the KLF has provided that glue which will bond us together, to be able to tolerate each other's religion, and tolerate their differences, and yet still have our own distinctive self. Inshallah, HBL will be here next year as well. I hope to see many more of you. May God bless you and God bless Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siddiqui. Now I'd like to ask our keynote speaker, Kamila Shamsi, whom we are always delighted to welcome to the Karachi Literature Festival. And she always makes it a point to be here. Please welcome Kamila Shamsi.
Thank you. I want to say to start by saying thank you to everyone who's been involved these last 3 days. I've just heard the estimates are there have been 70,000 people at this festival, which is incredible. It was 50,000 last year, so let's do the maths and think about what next year will look like. But there's so many people involved in it, and of course we have to start with Amina Saeed and Asif Farooqi, without whom none of this will be possible. But going down to everyone, the sponsors, the volunteers, the OUP team, other writers, the readers, the booksellers who've been doing fantastic job over on that side, and the audience members who've been just wonderful, wonderful audiences. And it's amazing to be a writer speaking to these numbers and with this level of interest. My novel, A God in Every Stone, was supposed to be published in March. And I said to my publishers, please do whatever you can to ensure it's ready by February, because I really want to take it to KLF if they'll allow me, and thank you for allowing me. So personally for me, the big difference between this year and other years at the festival has been that I've launched a book here. I found myself saying to someone the other day, my last novel came out pre-KLF, and I was using the phrase pre-KLF as though it was another era. As a historian of early Christianity might say BC. And it does feel that way. But the other difference, of course, in a less self-centered way, is not about my launch. It's the fact this year, more than any previous year at KLF, there's been a lot of talk of translation. And that's been very cheering. Translation is a wonderful way to talk about books, or the issue of translation, because it removes us from the oppositional language which too often surrounds conversations about the different languages and literatures of Pakistan. Very often when we talk, it's English versus Urdu. It's Western audience versus local readership. I want to say just one thing on this matter of Western audience versus local readership, which gets thrown at English language writers. It's true that more copies of my books get sold in England, but this is also true. If in London 10,000 people read a novel of mine, perhaps 10 of them will come and talk to me about it. In Karachi, if 10 people read a novel of mine, 12 of them will come and talk to me about it. So I'm not unmindful of local readership. There are, of course, real and serious issues around the fact that English is the language of global capitalism. But if that's the only kind of conversation we have about the relationship of Urdu and English literature in Pakistan, then everyone loses out. So let's talk for a moment about translation. Because when we talk about translation, we talk about the way the literatures of different languages speak to each other. Where is the language whose writers haven't been influenced by other languages? Just for starters, what would Urdu fiction be without the Russian writers, who often come to Urdu via their English translations, and you see the interconnectedness of these different literatures. I hope the conversation around translation that has started over this weekend will grow and spread out and lead to a greater breadth and professionalization of translation, because you can't have a proper translation without acquiring rights to translate books, without paying translators, without running courses on translation and really building up the importance of translation. But it's in the spirit of talking about the connections rather than the disconnections between languages, the spirit of the fertility of reading from as many traditions as possible, while also acknowledging the fraught political issues that underpin questions of language and power, that I want to talk today for a few minutes about Apna Shakespeare, or the history of Shakespeare in the subcontinent, which I think reveals a few things. Shakespeare came to, I'm going to say India to refer to what was before partition, this whole region. Shakespeare came to India very early. The earliest ships of the East India Company had people performing Shakespeare to entertain the merchants en route. By 1775, you actually had English language theatres set up, one in Calcutta and the following year in Bombay. And the Calcutta theatre was in fact set up with the assistance of that great, great Shakespearean actor, David Garrick, who received in return Madeira wine and chintz in thanks. At this point, Indians started going to the theatre, but it was primarily for the English to entertain them, these Shakespearean theatres. It was little more than a curiosity to most Indians. But things changed in 1835 with the Education Act and Morley's Minute on Education, which is such a seminal moment in the history of English in the subcontinent. Morley, of course, made the ludicrous statement, "A single shelf of a good European library is worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia." It is unlikely that Morley read very much, if any, Indian and Arabian literature, because there wasn't a lot of translation around in those days. But of course, Morley went on to say, "We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons who are Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect." And so started the rather awful tradition of educating the elite in English in order to teach them that everything about English and England was superior to everything Indian. The English language schools did this, and they put Shakespeare at the heart of it. They taught Shakespeare, and they told their Indian students that Shakespeare was superior to any writer of all the languages of India. As a result, these students, these English-speaking elite of the subcontinent, had a rather deferential attitude towards Shakespeare, and you see it very early on in there's a playbill from Elphinstone College in Bombay, and the students are performing Shakespeare, and they print up this preface where they explain that they're really not worthy of Shakespeare. They're doing the best they can, but of course, you know, how can they expect it to live up to this great man? And if you read that, what you see very clearly that there's been subject to cultural colonization. They really believe this other tradition is superior to anything of their own, and they're not worthy of it. But Morley hadn't counted on translation, and this is where Shakespeare was brought into the subcontinent properly and fully. By 1852, you had the first known full translation of Shakespeare. So this is within 20 years of Morley's Minute of Education. It was a translation of The Merchant of Venice in Bengali, and that same year you also had the first performance of The Taming of the Shrew in Gujarati. And what you find is when Shakespeare is translated, in English they had this deferential attitude, but in Urdu, in Hindi, in Gujarati, in Bengali, there's a very different approach to Shakespeare. So the man who translated The Merchant of Venice into Bengali, he Indianized the names. He also changed the story because that seemed a preferable way to doing things. And in the English preface to the translation, he described this translation as a Bengali natak or drama, taking only the plot and underplots of The Merchant of Venice with considerable additions and alterations to suit the native taste. This idea that Shakespeare was something to be adapted and adopted for the subcontinent was taken much further with the Parsi Theatre Company, which was, interestingly enough, a group that starts from Elphinstone College. So these same students who in English were being very deferential and saying, "We're not worthy of Shakespeare, we'll do our best." As soon as they think of Shakespeare as someone to be translated, they completely change their attitudes. And I'm going to read you a description of what Shakespeare looked like when performed by the Parsi Theatre. In Parsi theatre versions, one finds Portia singing passionate songs. Viola and Sebastian escape in the opening scene of the play in a railway train, which during a thunderstorm plunges into the sea. Antony continues to live while Cleopatra goes to her violent death. King Lear is turned into a comedy, and the plots of Richard III and King John are fused into one single play. Further, in an adaptation of Hamlet called Khoon-e-Nahaq, The Prince of Denmark is so thoroughly Indianized that his court is converted into a medieval Indian one, where princesses performed Kathak dance, begums chewed betel leaves, and instead of drinking wine from the poisoned cup, Gertrude had to do with milk. These plays were performed in Urdu, Hindi, Gujarati, and other languages, all often mingled into a single play. They played all across India, and they made Shakespeare Indian. But he was only one of many influences. It wasn't that Shakespeare will now be the centerpiece of the Parsi Theatre Company. He was there along with a lot of other more local writers. As partition approached, as independence approached, Shakespeare did continue to be associated with colonizers, and you find translations of Shakespeare actually decrease in number quite significantly once the independence movement is starting. The irony, of course, here is that it was precisely at this time that the great act of translation occurred in the subcontinent, which was when England was translated from the language of the colonizer to the language of independence. Because, of course, the line of Shakespeare that resonates particularly with me and with anyone thinking of Shakespeare and independence is Caliban's line to Prospero in The Tempest, where he said, "You taught me language, and my profit on it is I know how to curse." I like to think of Mr. Jinnah, that great lover of Shakespeare, whose dream it was to play Romeo at the Young Vic, sitting in a library and reading that, and in his mind changing it slightly to, "You taught me your language, and my profit on it is I know how to tell you to leave." And of course, it is in English that we have Nehru's Tryst with Destiny speech. It is in English that we have Jinnah's "You are free" speech. On the other side of things, Shakespeare continued, of course, to be an influence because much of the Parsi Theatre Company went into Bollywood. And anytime you see a Bollywood film in which there's a woman dressed as a man, you can feel the influence of Portia and Viola. But to go back this idea of translated English, English translated from the colonizer's language to a Desi English, an English in which we can speak of ourselves as a sovereign nation, although we aren't nearly enough of that yet. Those of us who are working in the English language today from Pakistan, we are working in that ever-evolving translated English, not the English of Morley, but the English that went on to Jinnah and then moves on through the rest of us and hopefully will evolve further into an increasingly decolonized language over the generations. It is the English that recognized the Parsi Theatre Company had it right. You take what comes from elsewhere and adapt and adopt it to your own view of history and your own context. It is because I work in this translated English that when I publish a novel which is about the ancient history of Gandhara, about syncretism, about Indian soldiers in the First World War, I know that the novels which cast a shadow over mine include Aag Ka Darya, Basti, and Udas Naslein. It should be said these are all works available in translation in English, and I also recognize that for all that we praise translation, the fact that these translations exist shouldn't be used as an excuse for those of us who do read Urdu, though haltingly, to fail to read the original texts. And slowly, I am getting there. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kamila. Can I ask, request Abidi Sahib to please give his closing speech?
कामिला ने मेरा पसंदीदा मौजू छेड़ दिया, थिएटर, जिस ये कहानी बॉलीवुड तक गई और लेकिन सारा जिक्र शेक्सपियर का रहा। हमारी इंदल सभा को वो भूल गईं। राजा इंदर परियों के अखाड़े में بیٹھا کرتے تھے اور پریاں رقص کرتی تھیں اور گاتی تھیں. انہی میں سبز پری بھی تھی. ایک روز وہ اڑتی ہوئی جا رہی تھی. ایک محل کی چھت پہ دیکھا کہ ایک شہزادہ سو رہا ہے، نہایت خوبصورت حسین و جمیل. سبز پری نے کالے دیو کو بلایا اور کہا کہ آج میں نے ایک شہزادے کو دیکھا اور میں دل اور جان سب ہار بیٹھی ہوں، جیسے بھی بنے اسے اٹھا کے لاؤ. شہزادہ گلفام سوتے میں اٹھا لیے گئے. جب ان کی آنکھ کھلی تو وہ سبز پری کے بیڈ روم میں لیٹے ہوئے تھے. اس کے بعد وہ قصہ چلا اور وہ پریوں کا رقص دیکھنے کے لیے ایک جگہ کہیں جا کے چھپ گئے. سبز پری نے انہیں چھپا دیا. اور جب راجہ اندر کو خبر ملی کہ کوئی انسان آ کر پریوں کا رقص اور ان کا اکھاڑا دیکھ رہا ہے تو بہت خفا ہوئے اور سبز پری کے پر نوچ کر اس کو محل سے نکال دیا. اور وہ جوگن بن گئی اور جوگن بن کے شہر شہر گلی گلی کوچے کوچے گانے اور ناچنے لگی. اس کی شہرت پھر پہنچی راجہ اندر کو کہ شہر میں کوئی جوگن آئی ہے جو ایسا رقص کرتی ہے کہ حیرت ہوتی ہے. راجہ نے حکم دیا کہ اسے بلایا جائے. کون ہے وہ؟ وہ آئی، دربار میں ناچی گائی اور راجہ نے خوش ہو کے اس سے کہا کہ مانگ، کیا مانگتی ہے؟ اس نے کہا کہ میرے گلفام کو آپ نے قید کر رکھا ہے، اسے چھوڑ دیجیے. تو راجہ اندر نے انہیں چھوڑ دیا. اور پھر کیا ہوا کہ کوئی پیار کی دیکھے جادوگری گلفام کو مل گئی سبز پری. سنا تھا کراچی میں ادب کا میلہ ہوتا ہے. آ کر دیکھا وہ تو حیرت کا میلہ نکلا. وہ تو حیرت کا میلہ نکلا. عجیب منظر تھا. ادب کے نام پر ایک خلقت چلی آ رہی تھی. آنے والوں میں جو صحیح معنوں میں کام کے آدمی تھے وہ سوچئے کون تھے؟ ماں باپ کی انگلی پکڑ کر آنے والے بچے. انہیں دیکھ کر ایک یقین ہوا کہ ہم رہیں یا نہ رہیں یہ میلہ ضرور رہے گا. اور میلہ بھی ایسا کہ جو دروازہ کھولیے اس کے پچھواڑے علم و حکمت کے دریا رواں ہیں. ادب، کتاب، شعر اور مصرے، گزرے ہوئے دور، آج کا زمانہ، آنے والی گھڑیاں، یہ سب گفتگو کا عنوان بنے ہوئے تھے 3 دن تک. بڑے ستانے والے سوال بھی موضوع بن رہے تھے. بہت ہنسانے والی داستانیں بھی بیان ہو رہی تھیں. جہاں یہ سب نہیں تھا وہاں سر بکھیرے جا رہے تھے، اور جہاں سروں میں ہلچل مچائی گئی تو وہی سر رقص میں ڈھل گئے. جیتے رہے اللہ کرے ایسے میلے سجانے والے لوگ کہ ان میلوں میں چھپی ہوئی ایک اور نعمت کا بیان یہاں کرنا بہت ضروری ہے. وہ جو ایک راہداری ہے، وہ جو داخلے کے دروازے سے چشمے کی طرح پھوٹ کے اندر کی جانب آتی ہے، اس راہداری میں اور کچھ نہ کیجیے، سامنے سے آنے والوں کے چہرے دیکھتے جائیے. کیسی کیسی شناسا صورتیں آنکھوں کے راستے لطافت کے احساس میں اترتی جاتی ہیں. کبھی دیکھیے وہ پرانے جاننے والے، کبھی وہ نئے چاہنے والے ایک ہجوم کی صورت چلے آتے ہیں، اور ہم چاہیں یا نہ چاہیں ہماری باہیں خود بخود کھل جاتی ہیں اور ہمارے سینے خود ہی فراخ ہو جاتے ہیں. یہ ہے وہ میلہ، وہی میلہ جس میں کھو جانے کو جی چاہتا ہے. کیا ہی اچھا ہو کہ ہم کھوئیں اور کوئی ہمیں آواز دے، کوئی ہمیں پکارے. انسانی رشتوں کی یہی معراج ہے. چلتے ہوئے ایک بات کہوں، ایسے لمحات میں عموماً حاضرین کا شکریہ ادا کیا جاتا ہے جن کا یہ کام ہے وہ کر ہی رہے ہیں. میں اس وقت حاضرین کا وکیل بناتا ہوں اپنے آپ کو. میں سامعین کی آواز بنتا ہوں. میں سمجھیے اس وقت مندوبین کا نمائندہ ہوں، اور ان سب کی جانب سے دل کی گہرائی سے شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں آکسفورڈ یونیورسٹی پریس کا. آپ سب کی جانب سے یہ فرض میں ادا کر رہا ہوں. شکریہ محترمہ امینہ سید کا، چھوٹے بھائی آصف فروخی کا، ان کے چھوٹے بڑے شراکت داروں کا، ان بچوں کا جو رضاکاروں کا روپ دھارے ہوئے ہیں، اور اس یادگار اجتماع کو اسپانسر کرنے والے اداروں کا بھی شکریہ کہ بعض نیکیاں جان بوجھ کر کی جاتی ہیں، لیکن کچھ نیکیاں ایسی بھی ہیں جو آپ ہی آپ سرزد ہو جاتی ہیں. یہ میلہ ایسی ہی نیکی ہے، اور ہماری دعا ہے، آرزو ہے اور تمنا ہے کہ یہ نیکی جاری رہے، کہ اسی کو صدقہ جاریہ کہتے ہیں. سچ ہے، کوئی لاکھ اسے ادب کا میلہ کہے، ہم تو اس کو حیرت کا میلہ ہی کہیں گے.